Hello, youth. We are going to do a Measures of Central Tendency video lesson, and you may hear Maggie crying in the background, and that's just okay because that's the life I lead. I can find mean, median, mode, and range of a set of data. So the mean, and you've probably heard of some of these before, so we're just going to go with them step by step. You're going to practice a little bit, write down the steps for each one, and then practice, and you'll be great. So mean is the average. So you've probably heard average before. It's also known as the mean. It's the average of all of the numbers in a set of data. A set of data is really just a series of numbers, maybe collected, that represent maybe a question or a similar thing. And we'll show examples of that. So how you find the mean is to add up all of the numbers. So add up all the digits you see, and then with that sum, you divide by how many numbers that you added together. So this example of using mean would be maybe calculating your overall grade in math for multiple tests. So if you got an 84, a 90, 92, 65, a 73, a 99, 190 on a test, you want to know, what's my average test score? So what you would do is add all of these up. And of course, you can use a calculator also. If you don't have a calculator or you want to challenge yourself, of course, you could find numbers that are compatible, right, to group them together. Commutative property, you don't have to do it in this order. When I add all of these together, what I get is 693. So that's my sum. That's the total of all of the digits. So what I'm going to do then to find the mean or the average is figure out that divided by how many numbers I added together. So I added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. So I'm going to do 693 divided by 8. And you could, right, if you don't have a calculator, right, do long division, 693 divided by 8. And what I get is 86 and 625 thousandths. So maybe you leave it like that. Maybe the directions are to round to the nearest whole number. In that case, it would be 87. So my average test score is an 87, which is a B+. So mean, just so you know when not to use mean, later you're going to learn about outliers. You would not want to use mean to find the central number or that middle number that represents the majority of the data if there's an outlier, and we'll talk about that later. Median. Median, if you think about the median in the road when you're driving, that's the middle part. So the median is the middle number in a data set. How you find the median is you put the numbers in order from least to greatest. You just count through till you get to the middle and find the middle number. If for some reason, if you have an even number of total data, then you find the average or the mean of the two middle numbers. So I'm going to do this right now. I don't want to forget a number there, that 2. I'm going to order these least to greatest. So I see a 1, I might cross them off as I go so I don't forget any, and a 2, and then my next least would be 18, and then I see 2 19s, and a 20, a 21, 22, 23, and a 250. So this was apparently finding the number of fundraisers sold by members on a baseball team. So example of when we could use median. Nope, that's not there. So then I order them least to greatest and I find the middle number. So I'm going to cross off the least and the greatest. And I'm going to go all the way through to the middle. We're checking on Maggie right now. And I see I have 2 middle numbers. So what I could do is add those together and I get 39. Well, 2 of them divide by 2. And I know that 40 divided by 2 is 20. So this must be 19 and a half is my median. So I could say that that's measuring the central amount so that the median number sold of fundraisers is 19 and a half about. So those are your steps. Okay, so mode. Mode is the number that shows up the most often in a data set. When I think of most, I talk super fast, and sometimes it sounds like mode. Mode, most, mode, most. So how you find the mode, it's super helpful sometimes to put your numbers in order first. That might be helpful for you. If you have more than one number that appears the most number of times, then there can be multiple modes. So there can be more than one mode. If no numbers appear more than once, there can be no mode. So there can be multiple modes, there can be one mode, or there can be no modes at all. So an example of finding the mode is if we want to figure out the most common grade to attend the Irish Way 5K. Step 1, I'm going to order them least to greatest. So I see a 6 over here. 6, 6, 6, 6. I see a 7, 7, 7, and 2 8s. So when they're lined up like that, it's easier for me to see because obviously it's significantly more 6s. Your data might have closer values or multiples, so putting them in order least to greatest really is helpful just so you don't miss anything. So then I can count them. I have a total of 5 6s, 3 7s, and 2 8s. So then I can see my mode isn't 5. Remember though, my mode in this case is 6 because 6 is the number that showed up the most often. So don't get that confused. All right, so mode, interestingly enough, mode is the only measure of central tendency that you can find with non-number values. Really important to remember that. So you are going to collect your own data during this kind of unit process, and your numbers have to be, the data you collect has to be number values. So for example, mode though, it could be like, what's your favorite type of pizza? Or what's your favorite color? Because then you can see something that comes up more than once with that, but you can't use word values to find the rest of the items. So mode's the only one that you can use to find non-number values. So be thinking of that when you do your questions, that it has to fit the other ones as well. So range then, range is the difference, and we know difference means subtraction, between the lowest and the highest value in your data set of numbers. So how we find the range is we take the highest value, or the most, the maximum, and we subtract from it the lowest value, or the minimum. So here on this example of just the weather change in a 24-hour period, so it's going up, it's going down, or what the temperature is. So maybe it was 24 degrees to 5 degrees. So glad it's getting warmer. We look for our highest value. So I see here my highest value is 24. My lowest value then would be 5. And again, it might be helpful for you to list these least to greatest so you don't miss anything. So then I would take my highest value of 24 and I would subtract my lowest for a value of 19. So the range in numbers here, the temperature ranged a 19-degree difference throughout the day. Okay, so promising you, as before, we're going to get to outlier now. So an outlier is a much smaller or much larger value than the rest of the numbers in the set. So you think the word outlier kind of sounds like outsider. So it just doesn't fit. It's not really in that measure of central tendency, remembering that central kind of means that middle or representing the majority there. So depending on which measure of central tendency you choose, an outlier can really throw off the data. So like we talked about in the mean, if you were thinking about salaries and someone was making $50,000, $49,000, $52,000, and then someone somewhere in the set was making $100,000 or $150,000, that would really throw off the data because it doesn't necessarily fit. So going back to our example from the median, there were some outliers in this data, and we had some people just sold a minimum fundraisers of 1 and 2, and then someone super overachieved and got 250. Whereas you can see the rest of them were here in the 19, 18, lower 20s. So the mean of this specific set of data is 39.6. But does that really measure the central or the kind of the group as a whole if 9 out of 10 of them sold less than that? So that outlier, those 3 outliers really threw off that data. Whereas the median and the mode are really close together and they show that. And then the range will kind of remind you, if the range is really large, kind of reminds you that maybe the median isn't going to be super close together. Here's just a quick little snapshot for you. You don't need to do anything. It just gives you another example, maybe a little quick snapshot note sheet that you could quickly reference to do all of these things. All right, so per usual, this is the you do. Now you try using the information you've just learned. I want you to try to figure out the mean, median, mode, and range for the set of data given that represents, in January, a group of 6th graders at Rosemont Middle School were asked how long does it take them to get to school each day. So the results here were in minutes. So I want you to figure out the measures of central tendency for how long it was taking these 6th graders to get to school, and you will upload these with your notes. Please upload and submit your notes and make sure that you have a super awesome day. Work hard and be your best self.